the Liberal government has tabled new legislation to crack down on hate crimes. The bill introduces 4 new criminal offenses. They include the use of symbols to promote hate, particularly those linked to terrorist organizations. Justice Minister and Attorney General Sean Fraser detailed the bill earlier today.
In addition to these new offences, we are taking certain steps that will make it easier for law enforcement to take action. This comes directly from feedback that we've had with conversations with law enforcement over the course of the summer, including adding a definition of hatred to the criminal code, which codifies the test laid out by the Supreme Court of Canada, as well as removing the requirement of the consent of a provincial attorney general in order to prosecute a crime of hate. This is important to allow police to do their job when they see hate in our communities.
The CBC's David Thurton joins us now live from Ottawa. So David, you've read through Bill C9. What more can you tell us about it?
Andrew, it's not a very long read at all. It's very short, less than 10 pages. And the government is calling this the Combating Hate Act, or Bill C-69 for short. It creates 4 new criminal offenses. The first 2 are aimed at protecting religious institutions from hateful conduct. And according to the bill, it would be an offense to provoke a state of fear and obstruct access to these religious buildings. And it's not just places of worship, it's also schools associated with these places of worship, and also seniors' homes or cemeteries that, again, are associated with religious groups that might be impacted. The other thing that this bill proposes to do is that it makes it an offense to promote hate through symbols, and it specifically mentions the Nazi symbol, but it also extends to images that are associated with entities listed by the federal government as terrorist organizations. For example, possibly the Proud Boys, Hamas as well. Finally, I will mention for the first time, the bill defines what hatred actually is. And this is something that we've heard from law enforcement and other groups calling on the federal government to do. And the legislation establishes for the first time the crime of hate, saying that hate can be a motivator in existing offenses that people might commit. So the Justice Minister, Andrew, explained how that would work. Have a listen.
This will operate by layering on top of existing criminal offences with a new offence that will specifically target hate where that crime was committed because of their motivation of hatred towards the victim. You can imagine that it may be more morally culpable for a person who assaults another, not just because of a personal problem they may have, but because of their belonging to a community. If a person robs a store because the owner comes from a particular group, or if a person commits harassment against someone who is seeking to attend university classes merely because they belong to a particular community of faith or race.
So the legislation states that if a person is found guilty, the bill states if a person is found guilty, they could face prison time, ranging from up to 2 years if they're found guilty of using hateful symbols, to a maximum of 10 years for obstructing access to places of worship. We are getting a reaction, Andrew, from the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. They say that the bill is an important signal of action by the federal government to address issues that the Jewish community faces. The National Council for Canadian Muslim also sees positive things in this bill, but they have some concerns about how this impacts the rights of Canadians, Andrew.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because there is some controversy around the bill on whether or not it infringes on charter rights. So what reaction are you hearing?
Yeah, civil liberties groups are already concerned that law enforcement agencies might use this bill, if it is passed, to criminalize unpopular protests, dissension, offensive speech, and also possibly crack down on just disruptive protests. So that's the fear from civil liberty groups. But Justice Minister Sean Fraser was responding to that concern because reporters, of course, were raising those questions at that news conference.
This bill goes to great lengths to specifically protect the ability of Canadians to take part in peaceful protests and to freely express themselves in a nonviolent way. In addition to the obvious charter rights which bind the government, we have included specific language to exempt peaceful protests and to make clear that Canadians who seek to communicate information continue to be free to do so.
And Andrew, if you read the bill, it really does clarify cases where the act, if it passes, cannot be applied. So like if an academic, for some reason, needs to show for educational purposes a hateful symbol, the act cannot be used to prosecute an educator, an academic for those purposes. But nevertheless, there are a lot of concerns about how this act will impact civil liberties, the rights of Canadians. And as this bill, it's just been introduced, makes its way through the House of Commons and eventually through the Senate, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about those concerns.